Ocarina of Time is, as I truly remember it, the very first Nintendo game I was ever exposed to. Maybe a bold choice for my dad considering just how young I was and how gruesome this game can be, but I cannot express how happy I am that he let me watch him play back then, and that it played such a crucial role in my development. Because even now, almost 20 years later, I can safely say that this game is at the very least top 5 for all the games I've played in my life. It's barely a competition. That is why when the remake was announced in the latest Direct, no longer a rumor, a real thing that's coming later this year, I knew this was something I needed to push to the front of my schedule. Here's the thing, even with just a minute-long trailer of really just 2 shots, I knew there was a lot more than just the graphics they were going to change, namely because of what Link is wearing in the overhead zoom. Oh, and yeah, the entire room he's in is completely different too. So for days, I annoyed everyone I knew about it until I got inspired. You know what? I should go back and play it again. I've got a fresh new 3DS now that I bought with my own money. Ocarina's always been a little intimidating to me, but I'm sure if I put the work in, I can beat it within a few days, and then I'll know everything they could, should, or shouldn't change about Ocarina of Time. But yeah, in case the title didn't warn you enough, this is major story and gameplay spoilers, so if you've never played Ocarina and are waiting for the remake to be your first experience, just be warned. As much as I got frustrated with quite a few moments in my Ocarina of Time playthrough, struggled and was sometimes pushed to a walkthrough, it was still a breath of fresh air not to be babied through the whole thing. It was more enjoyable for me to look up the solution, get past it, and understand that it was still well structured with a few minor exceptions. Also, since there's no way to know how many side quests they'll keep outside of the obvious ones like getting Epona and the Great Fairies, and because I really would like to get this video out a little faster, just know I did not take the time to 100% the game and get all the secrets and collectibles. I could stream that another day for completionist's sake, but for now, at its core, this will act mainly as a trip down memory lane, since the version I'm playing came out in 2011 and the original in 1998. Safe to say, it's been a while. With all that being said, it's time to boot up the game. Before we make a save file, let's appreciate the opening menu. The song that plays as it shows you various shots of Link and Epona traveling Hyrule is enough to make my eyes water. As much as I love the visuals though, I wouldn't be surprised if they simplified it. You do have to remember that the 3DS is split screen, and with the Switch 2, it'll probably look a little bit cluttered. The UI for this game really makes it feel a lot more magical. I won't be upset as long as they keep the stony look in the soundtrack, and I'd be over the moon to hear similar sound bites scrolling through the menu options. Now let's make a new save file, hopefully still being able to name Link whatever you want, as the original didn't have a profanity filter. In the remake, it's entirely possible that the trailer will be the new opening, with the tapestry similar to many other past Zelda games. But the original starts differently enough that I hope it's a combination of the two. We get a cutscene of Navi in first person from her point of view making her way to a young Link asleep in his bed, of which we already know is getting more to his outfit. Personally, it's a bit hard for me to get used to something that isn't just the green tunic, hat, and belts. And please tell me we do get the hat back. Same with his Widow's Peak. It's necessary, and I'm hoping this Link gets to be very expressive. He has one of the hardest journeys in any game of the Zelda series. He deserves to keep some sass. There's so much charm they'll need to be able to recreate with the original's lovely, slower pacing and limited graphical era, with the little shake-off when she bumps into a fence in her urgent flying. She shouts at you, demanding you get moving. Rightfully so, because the world is in danger. And then you can control Link and leave the treehouse. Here is where I want to say they shouldn't add the ability to run, jump, or climb without prompting. I thought the opposite early on because I was getting impatient, but it's actually very important how you explore that it be like this. It forces you not to rush and miss things, which admittedly I did a lot because I've become so used to the modern era, but complete free roam would completely kill a lot of the puzzles we meet later. Now, this world is just completely unique, which has a lot to do with this particular Link's upbringing, but Kokiri Forest is just such a perfect area, there isn't a lot of things they should alter. However, you could add various items to find and inspect in Link's room to shed more light on his home life, and maybe make some of the Kokiri NPCs that look the same to each other stand out a bit more. There's a group here called the Know-It-All Brothers that share the same hair and outfit spread out to teach you mechanics, but the rest of the Kokiri do have unique designs, and they also teach you game mechanics. It's just a little odd once you think about it. A cute small detail I noticed is that there's a little dinosaur drawing at the bottom of the tree trunk. I'll definitely be looking for that in case it's still there in the remake, but I wouldn't be surprised if the monster was changed to something more canonical to known Zelda enemies. The only thing I find truly strange is how you get the Kokiri sword. There's a crawl space up a nearby ramp that leads into a little maze with a chest that holds it, but to my knowledge, they never explain why or how it's there. Yes, a tutorial boulder dodging trial for the game progression, but I'd be happier to see it either explained a bit better through dialogue or obtained through a different method, like a Kokiri that's really into swords in one of the huts, lends and teaches you how to use it. Regardless, equipped with a sword and a shield you buy from the shop by collecting money from rocks and grass, a very jealous Mido will begrudgingly allow you to see the Great Deku Tree, which I hope looks especially old in this one, because he's about 20 minutes away from kicking the bucket. It would just make that transition a lot smoother. You go inside him for the first dungeon, and again, I love its structure. I basically wouldn't change a thing. Goma is a great first boss. Classic Zelda shoot the eyeball weak point. I just hope she gets freakier looking. She's called a queen, but she's actually pretty small up close compared to the other bosses. Clear the dungeon, come back out, and the Great Deku Tree will give you the Kokiri's emerald before passing on. His dying wish? Go find Zelda. So that's what we're gonna do. We go back through the forest and Saria gives us her ocarina as a gift to remember her by. I think this will be the next long cutscene that really gets some love. It's emotional, it's important, and it acts as a great break-off from the tutorial. It'll be interesting to see if they decide to go with fully voiced cutscenes or just the character-specific sounds here and there like the original has. Leave the forest, meet the owl, blow past him into Hyrule Field. Now, here's where I think the remake will really show its colors. Hyrule Field is incredibly boring. Late game, there's a handful of optional things to find, but this is the map's center, a gateway to every other area. In the most hopeful part of my heart, I can see them adding new buildings, new roaming NPCs sitting under trees or by fires, new hidden cosmetics, anything. Literally anything. And half of its border currently leads to nothing. They do a good job of rewarding you for exploring, it's just that the field is so empty. I'll admit I enjoy the freedom of it, being able to simply roll from place to place as a quiet break since you aren't really threatened here, but making the view of all areas like the castle, Lon Lon Ranch, Death Mountain, and the entrance to Zora's Domain at least more grand and appealing in the distance will really breathe new life into this moment. Also, this is where we're introduced to the day-night cycle. There's a few things that change around Hyrule depending if it's night or day, but it can be a bit annoying to complete tasks based on this, because once you're in one of those places that holds a time-specific quest, like the castle market, time actually stops. When it's nighttime, the castle gate closes up. It's a cool detail, it's not too obstructive if you know where to wait so that time will keep passing, but if you don't, you could stand there forever wondering why exactly now the sun doesn't want to rise. Thankfully, later on you learn the sun song, which fixes it becoming a repeating annoyance. So you can let me know if you think letting the day-night cycle run naturally everywhere is a needed change or not. Staying on task, we head through a very fun and lively market to the castle. To get to Zelda, you have to sneak past the guards. But at first glance, if you're trained on more modern NPCs' visibility cones, it can look way more complicated than it actually is. They can't see nearly as far ahead of themselves as you think they can, so you're supposed to just stroll right through onto the open lawn in between them. Oh, but you do have to talk to Malon before going through the gate because she'll give you an egg that hatches and becomes a cuckoo. This is small, but they should make it so she just already hands you a fully grown cuckoo, or at least change the cuckoo model to look like a baby chick when it hatches. I know this is a fairy tale world and anything can happen, but still. You need the cuckoo to wake up her dad, Talon, whose fat ass is conveniently blocking the way inside. Sneak past some more guards, these ones are easier to understand. Meeting Zelda is going to be cutscene central, and especially now, she has a very unique design choice that sets her apart from other Zeldas. Her younger model's headdress, and the extra covering outside just an average princess dress. I really hope they keep her wearing it. They probably will, but it's a worst case scenario stuck in my head that they put her in something else. She teaches you all about Ganon and tells you the story of the 3 goddesses. The goddesses themselves, I'm really hoping, have way more interesting designs, because even though we don't see them in person, in cutscenes they're really just a single color, which of course led me to forget about them pretty easily until now. Once you understand your destiny, you're given Zelda's Lullaby, a ticket into Death Mountain to see the Gorons, and this very cool gift that tells you to like and subscribe. Wow, that's crazy. When leaving the castle, you meet Impa, Zelda's guard, and her design could definitely use an upgrade too. Her armor is barely armor. The path there is straightforward, and as we get into Kakariko Village on the way to the gate, for the love of God, keep the other people around Kakariko Village and the castle market, or anywhere else around Hyrule, ugly. Not all of them are, but when they are, it's important. It is a staple in classic Zelda. It's non-negotiable. It makes them real and sometimes bizarre and always interesting. Because when you scrub away any imperfections of even the smallest characters that might be lovable or use it as a constant joke, you're telling the people playing these games that only the pretty ones get a spot in the end credits, and I'm tired of pretending this is okay to me. Dampé is a prime example of how I think they get it right. Beetle too, even though he's not in this game. At the end of the day, if you can't make a character lovable for their personality and have to rely on how they look, 9 times out of 10 you didn't actually make a very memorable character. The shock of finding something grotesque like the cursed spider family is what makes Ocarina of Time special. And this applies to the enemies too. Some of these things are absolutely terrifying. A lot of this to me is also a toast to the sound design and fight mechanics, but these visual designs need to stay terrifying to match. And a lot of them, honestly, should be scarier to match the new art style. But anyway, back to business. There's no problems until you get inside the city. There's an intimidating amount of doors, but talking to the Gorons, who all have the exact same Goron model, will eventually lead you straight down to Darunia, the Goron's leader. You can tell he's important because he looks different, except then you find out he's depressed, and you need a song to cheer him up. What nobody tells you is that only Saria's song will cheer him up, and you'll have to go back to the forest to find her. This is a pretty devious thing to do after you just unlocked basically the entirety of Hyrule. If they don't give you a hint to return, players could easily be lost for days and potentially give up on the game entirely. Saria could have easily given you this song at the same time she gave you the ocarina, that way you wouldn't have to go find her 2 separate times, now and when you need the forest temple. But this is also the start of where I start to have a real bone to pick with Navi. She's your guide, with you at all moments, and yet at least when it comes with knowing where to go next, she's barely useful. They do have some semblance of a solution to this with the future stone outside Link's treehouse back home that you can crawl into for guidance. That's actually an amazing feature, really. But it's a pain to go all the way back there every time if you're frequently stumped. So I just ask that in the remake that Navi generally give better hints, because you have to go out of your way to talk to her anyway to learn them. If you don't want hints, you can just ignore her. But yes, you do need to go back to the forest. There's one place to the left of the entrance that you haven't visited yet, and it's a series of tunnels. You have to follow where her song plays the loudest to find her, which is a really cool choice. Get the song, go back to Darunia, play it, and he'll tell you how to enter the second dungeon. Except, wait, no, he doesn't do that, actually. He gives you a bracelet that lets you pick up bomb flowers. You know, the thing that's scattered everywhere in and out of the city. He should definitely just tell you where it is, which is outside, because he definitely knows. And hey, you wanna know something funny? Once you're able to pick up bomb flowers, there's a door in the city that's blocked by rocks that you can explode. It leads right to where Saria was, but you only get that ability after you needed her. I don't want to complain much about the back and forth of it all, since walking around this magical world does feel really nice, but I'd rather this tunnel just didn't exist at all. It feels like such a slap in the face. Anyway, you have to go outside the city to get to Dodongo's cavern. And once again, I also think this is great across the board, with the minor exception of King Dodongo's design. It's the most boring and forgettable in my opinion when it comes to bosses, but the fight itself is nice. Similar to the first, this dungeon is pretty easy as long as you're taking your time, and it's visually appealing as far as a cave goes with the giant skull that looms over the opening room. Beat it, get the Goron's Ruby, then onto Zora's Domain. There's signs in a nearby river, so it's good that it's already obvious where it is. Once inside, the Zoras have a similar problem to the Gorons. They all look the same except for the important ones. And you find that the king is also depressed because his daughter is missing. So depressed that he can't tell you where to go. You're supposed to talk to the nearest Zora, which is down the hall. He will test your diving ability. You have to beat the test so he'll give you the ability to dive deeper. That's the only way you can get to an underwater door. The problem is, with the existence of side quests, it's easy to ignore him and assume that's all he is because of the way he prompts you with this test. The door will lead to a lake where a letter in a bottle rests kind of out of view. You could totally miss it. You need to bring that back to the king so he can read it and realize it's from the princess. I think this could all be pretty easily remedied if the king had a guard in the throne room, to which explained why the king was distressed and then offhandedly mentioned the test that's being offered nearby. I don't mind that it doesn't tell you where the underwater door is. You just got a new ability, obviously you're going to want to test it out, and the door is pretty big. From there, just make the bottle more visible, which I'm sure will be easy with the newer graphics. You could also either have Navi say you should bring it back to the king, or have a note that pops up on screen saying that in your inventory or when you pick up the item. And yes, this fabled moment. You give the king the letter, and as he joyfully exclaims it's written by Princess Ruto herself, he slowly, agonizingly, for like 30 real seconds, scoots out of the way of the gate. Do I think it'll last this long in the remake? God, no. Would it be the funniest thing they could possibly do? Absolutely. When you get up there, you're met with Lord Jabu Jabu. Again, they don't tell you what to do. It's another case of, go back to this random spot and get something we didn't tell you you'd need. This time, it's a fish, so he opens his mouth to eat it and you can go inside. But there's like one spot where fish are in Zora's domain over in a corner somewhere. It's barely visible if you're focused on just getting where you need to be. Just have Navi say that he looks hungry and scatter some more fish around Zora's domain. Then it makes sense to capture one in a bottle and hop in. And credit where credit's due. I actually remember this dungeon being a lot more frustrating and confusing than it actually is. You carry a very upset Princess Ruto through the body of this giant fish. For now, I think her design is perfect. I really like that the Zoras have those dark mystical eyes in this one, but maybe you can make her scales have this shine that makes her easier to spot when you lose track of her. And I'm so excited to see this actually look gross and wet in the remake, because the first fault I have for this area is that even though everything is made of guts, every room is very angular and the structure is, well, let's just say it can't possibly be anatomically correct. On the other hand, all the walls look identical, so it can be confusing and a little overwhelming to know where exactly you are, which should be another easy fix. The mini-boss this time is just a giant Octorok, and I'm not a fan. Design-wise, it's not much, and difficulty-wise, it's pretty fucking annoying. It's definitely not the hardest in the game, but you have to stun it while it's turned away from you to hit its backside, but both of you can only move around the rim of this spiked platform. If it comes toward you, it's just as fast as you and does a significant chunk of damage for how many hearts you have at this point. It's not too bad, stun it until it turns around again, but I think now's a good time to mention that the camera can be really fucked. Sometimes it follows Link, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes Navi will target what you want, sometimes she doesn't. I think the real boss, Baronade, is not only easier to figure out, but way cooler in design. Defeat it with the boomerang, and you've saved Ruto, who gives you the Zora's Sapphire as a sort of engagement ring, since she's decided you're cool now, I guess. This reminds me of something else I wanted to talk about. Allow me to take a small detour. Ocarina of Time is known for a lot of things, but one of the most prominent is what the internet knows as a wide variety of love interests for Link. Thankfully, as much as Zelda games across the years have made it clear that Link is very attractive, I always think it's the smartest move for them to keep his true feelings up to interpretation, fully and completely. In this game, the main ones you meet are Saria, Malon, Ruto, and Zelda, but it does a good job of not committing to anyone. Since we have the 3 gemstones, Link is about to use them to travel in time 7 years, where he finds out that he's been a Hylian and not a Kokiri this whole time, which separates from Saria because she is a kid forever. I shouldn't have to explain to you why it would be weird for Saria to be a continued teased interest if only Link can be an adult, and thankfully it promptly ends that interest there. As for Ruto, she later becomes a sage and admits that they could never have a relationship either, since she has a job to protect her people. In time, the same happens to Zelda at the end of the game. She awakens as a sage and sends Link back to his original time once the evil is vanquished. But I didn't mention Malon, did I? Now, I'm not trying to be biased, I really do think it's always a good thing to keep the true blatant romance with Link out of Zelda games, but if they were to go with anyone, I'll always be on Team Malon. She's a little teasing, but kind, generous, and has the simplistic humanity Link is stripped from when he's forced forward in time to fight another endless barrage of monsters. Speaking of, things are about to get a lot more scary, which I endlessly applaud this game for. Grabbing the Master Sword from the Temple of Time, Rauru, the Sage of Light, will give you the Light Medallion. Then you'll meet Sheik for the first time, of which I assume will look the most like his appearance in Smash Bros. Ultimate. And he will finally explain Link's upbringing, which I'm begging will get a memory cutscene in the remake this time, as he tells Link that you were always a Hylian, that his mother fled danger when he was young to the safety of the forest, where the Kokiri took him in and she passed shortly after. It's such a beautifully tragic story, and it deserves heavily voiced recognition. A smaller hope of mine is that they put more emphasis on how traumatic it can be to jump to that age so fast, missing out on 7 years of your childhood for the sake of saving the world. Sheik is also going to run into you before every temple from now on to teach you a song that will let you teleport back to said temples if you decide to leave. This isn't a necessary change, but maybe it would add a bit of quality of life to add more teleport waypoints that weren't there originally for the remake. But free to move again, heading out into the castle market as an adult after hibernating for so long, you find a desolate wasteland filled with my personal childhood terror. Redeads. Ironically, they're actually really easy to defeat. They just have such a hollow, bone-chilling slowness paired with that shrill scream that stops you in your tracks if too close. Also, they hug around your shoulders and bite at your head to damage you, which is fucking sick and so terrible at the same time. I really hope the remake can nail that feeling of unease, where it's quiet, everyone is gone, the shops are broken down, and the sky is muddled and dark. Oh shit. Guys, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have any notes for the next 3 temples. Sheik tells you where to get the other medallions, so as long as you remember what he said, you're good to go back to Kokiri Forest, then Goron City, then Zora's Domain. You can also get Epona now if you learned and played Epona's song already at the ranch in Hyrule Field as a child, even if it's just to move a little faster in Hyrule Field. Prompt Ingo's race, who's evil now under Ganon's control, and just hop right over the fence with her after he traps you inside for winning. The Forest Temple is a little boring, but it does have 2 rooms that can turn sideways, which is a fun mechanic. The mini-bosses are the 4 Poes, which, again, it'd be nice if Navi told you to shoot the hallway paintings to make them appear, and the boss is actually Phantom Ganon, which is definitely one of the most memorable fights. I think it's interesting that they went with such ghostly enemies for a forest temple, but I guess the wild woods are usually pretty mysterious. Shoot Phantom Ganon when he leaps from the paintings around the room. Simple, but very cool they were able to do something like this back then. Forest Medallion obtained! The Fire and Water temples introduced the concept of the different colored tunics, one being heat resistant and the other allowing you to breathe underwater, which I hope will also look different from the green tunic outside of just color. I remember getting lost a few times in the Fire Temple, but it can't have been that bad since I didn't write down any gripes other than the keys can blend into the walls too much, and you need to kill them all before a door can open. It's really barely a problem if you use Navi the way you're supposed to. Save the Gorons, defeat Volvagia, which is an exceedingly simple game of whack-a-mole, and get the Fire Medallion. By far, the best dungeon in the game is the Water Temple. Going back to Zora's Domain, you find everything trapped in ice, and you need to go through a frozen mini-dungeon before you can get to it. Warm up the king with blue fire, and he'll tell you where to go. Lake Hylia. Go there, find Ruto again, who I'd love to see wearing something completely different now, like some elegant Zora armor. But thankfully, this time, she can take care of herself. And you don't see her again until you defeat the boss. In this temple, there's There's 3 levels where the water can rise to complete various puzzles around a circular room with the iron boots. It's honestly just really fun, and it made me discover that Navi's voice lines actually get garbled in the water, which is so cute. This mini-boss is also my favorite so far, Shadow Link, which manifests from your reflection that disappears in the water once you enter a room with a lone tree in the center of a shallow pool. I really hope his design has a big upgrade as well. Lean into the shadows, add wisps, make his eyes white, or red eyes and white hair like we've seen before also, to stand out more. But regardless, there should be a brilliant reveal cutscene in that room. He's pretty tough if you don't have Bigoron's sword, thank you Zelda Dungeon, which is a sword you get from a big Goron in one of the Goron City rooms after meeting him as a child. Otherwise, I guess the trick is to try fighting him without using the shield much, since he mirrors both your attacks and your defenses. The boss is Morpha, a ball that calls the water like tendrils to seek you out, doubling as a clever weak point. And that's the water medallion. Welcome back to not knowing where to go! It's Kakariko Village, psh, obviously. Oh damn, everything's on fire. No, wait, I guess not. It clears up pretty fast after a shadow flies out of a nearby well, fakes you out by going really far over a random hill, and then barely touches you to knock you out and cut to black for seemingly no reason. She gets you on your feet and teaches you the song that gets you to the Shadow Temple. But that's not actually where you have to go. Again, fucking keep up, idiot. It's the well. Oh, you can't go to the well? You mean to tell me you haven't talked to the windmill guy yet? Next you're gonna tell me you didn't pull out your ocarina in front of him to learn his Song of Storms, then travel back in time, play that song as a kid, and then go in the well, because the song drained the well water. God, you're stupid. Anyway, you're in a new mini-dungeon now, and you're about to learn about the first thing that almost broke me. You see, the thing that's really fun about the Shadow Temple is that it has a bunch of stupid fucking fake walls. They're different from bombable walls. They look exactly like regular walls, except you can just walk through them. This also happens to the floor, some chests, and some enemies. To navigate this, you need the Lens of Truth, which you find in a room you'd already never think to go to in this godforsaken well. You see, by this point you've been given the magic meter. The Lens of Truth uses up that magic meter, and if you're out of magic in a place that doesn't give you any back, most of the time you're shit out of luck. Something else they don't tell you, when you have the Lens of Truth, you can just leave the well. I was getting my ass kicked room to room looking for this goddamn hidden wall I missed, some clue on the map, a boss to fight, anything. No, you can just leave. That's... God. But you know what? I'll take it. At least the enemies weren't too hard to beat. Pretty scary, but... fuck. The Shadow Temple. First of all, to get in, you need Din's Fire, which they also never tell you about. I happened to get lucky and grab it by chance from one of the Great Fairies, who I can almost guarantee will be greatly censored in the remake, but I really like how crazy they look. It definitely gives this world more personality. From there it's a normal temple, just with more stupid walls. And I guess you can cheese the Lens of Truth a bit by spamming instead of holding. It won't really drain your magic that way, which is good to know. I'm sure that won't be the case in the remake though, so they really should give you more magic bottles in here. Still, that's not even the only stupid item you have to use. You also get the hover boots, which allow you to run off a ledge for about 3 steps before falling to your death if you didn't reach the next platform in time. It's just barely more than a regular jump to justify using it. And yes, I said fall, not jump after you've hovered, because why would you jump off air ledges when we've only trained you to know that you can jump off every other single ledge you've come across? And if you still have them equipped on normal ground, they slip like ice. I'll try to be reasonable. It's not a crime to have a hard boss fight, and I'm not going to act like this is the hardest thing a game has ever presented to anyone in the history of gaming. But compared to all the other bosses so far, you've gotta be kidding me. If I didn't use a walkthrough, I can feel the hours of my life that would have been sucked from my heart. The tears I was already pretty close to crying. So here's how I learned to prepare. Most of the temple is fine, like I said, just like any other. But there's something I neglected to mention for these temples. Fun fact, every time you die in a temple, you get sent back to the very beginning, the entrance. It doesn't matter where you are. It saves your progress, but you have to walk back anyway. It's unnecessary, it's annoying, it's exhausting, and it needs to be removed in the remake. If you've managed to get to the end, usually right before the boss fight, there will always be an unlockable shortcut that will let you get close to where you left off and heal up. And technically, yes, that's true for the Shadow Temple as well. There's one lone pot after the shortcut with a fairy inside, which you can make respawn by leaving and re-entering the room. Use the first to refill your health, and trap 2 more in bottles if you've done the Cuckoo minigame as a kid at Lon Lon Ranch. But there's one more thing standing in the way of you and the boss room. A boat that slowly drags its way down a river of smoke, that you have to stay on for almost a full minute defending yourself from 2 Stalfos, skeleton guys with shields and swords. They hit you before it's time to get off? We don't care, get going. There's no more healing you can do before the boss, and there's no going back. Not unless you want to do another hours-long side quest for a scarecrow you've never encountered before. But that's okay, this is only the hardest boss in the entire game by a mile. You remember how I said I was first introduced to this game by my dad when I was really young? He never beat it in almost 20 years. In fact, every time we've brought up this game to each other in the past, there's been one thing he always mentions. That drum guy. It's a phrase that's been burned into my memory, haunting my childhood just as well as these cold, dead halls. I think I'm finally ready to finish what we started. Welcome to Bongo Bongo, an enormous creature with a giant weak point eye and 2 detached hands that bounce on the drum you're now victim to. Sorry, standing on. Don't let them push you off, or else you're dropped in poison and need to rush back on. He immediately hides his eye in shadow, but you can't use the lens of truth to reveal it unless both of his hands are stunned, and they swipe fast. If one grabs you too many times, it's a swift game over. The Zelda dungeon walkthrough gives you 2 methods, one with bows and arrows and one with the sword. But no boss has ever been more fucked up with the camera, which means terrible targeting, and we can't afford that right now. We're picking the sword. When one hand attacks, not both, dodge roll out of the way toward the other hand as soon as the ground is stable enough. It'll stay still long enough to stun it, and by the time you do, the other hand will come down from its attack, leaving it vulnerable to be stunned as well. Now they're both down, and his head will rush toward you in the dark. If you have magic in your meter, which it also doesn't let you refresh every time, you can use the lens of truth to reveal the eye, hookshot it before it hits you, and swing your sword at it over and over and over again. Repeat that cycle, I think about 7 times, and he's dead. It took me roughly 6 attempts, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I have a very weak heart when it comes to video games, admittedly. I have a history of being impatient and reaching an early limit, giving up the second it's more difficult than fun, even when I'm close to the end goal. So beating this kind of felt therapeutic. Like I'd been passed the torch, like I was finally able to call myself worthy of stepping into the remake. But we're not done yet. There's still one temple left. The Spirit Temple in Gerudo Valley. But there's no way it can be as bad as that, right? What the hell is a triple Anubis room? Before you can get to this temple, you need to free the 4 carpenters from the Gerudo cages. And the Gerudo all look great, but again, differentiation is always a nice touch. I think with how much the graphics are going to improve, more distinct facial features will be a big help here, especially for Noboru. Another figure-it-out trial and error where you have a bunch of rooms to look through, but this time you're making sure not to get spotted and thrown in jail. I said earlier that the camera can be a bit funny sometimes. Well, it really hates tight corridors, and that's all these rooms are. It's not that bad, but the camera will shift behind you, making half the screen blocked by Link while you're trying to see where and what you're hiding from. Defeat the Gerudo that guard the 4 cages, and get the ticket to leave for the desert. Although if you aren't careful and they're able to land a hidden, they'll automatically send you back to jail. I just think realistically this is a little silly. Link's already fighting, there's no way he can't just keep going. Either way, you're instructed to use the hover boots to get across the quicksand river, then follow the flags to a hut with a stone that tells you to use the lens of truth again. Don't have the magic? How fun! You get to go back home and figure it out. There's a green potion somewhere, go fetch! Make sure you have enough magic that it fills the bar, so the Poe that appears can drag you through the sand for longer than it needs to. only to find out you need to go back to the castle again and become a kid as soon as you enter the Spirit Temple. But I actually don't want to complain about this one too much. You get the warp from Sheik, so it's easy to go back this time, and it's really cool that half of the Spirit Temple is for Child Link and the other half is for Adult Link. Complete the child side to get the silver gauntlets, complete the adult side to reach the boss. Easy peasy. But there's one damn room, one cruel, evil room, that I found myself trapped in for over an hour. Pacing, dying, I was convinced the game was bugged, and I was hard-locked from progressing. This one's just stupid. So, in this room, there's 3 things called an Anubis, and you have to kill them with fire. Any method works, as long as they die to fire. Fire arrows, Din's fire, or the button in the room that makes a fire ring appear that you can easily trick them into going into. Now, I want you to read this excerpt with me, straight from the Zelda dungeon. My guiding light that has helped me make this video possible. To make it easy, start the fire and follow the wall clockwise around the room to kill all 3 at once. Go through the newly opened door. Imagine my shock and awe when said doors do not, in fact, open. There are 3 doors in this room, but one of them has a lock on it for a small key. So naturally, I thought, that must be what I'm missing. So I searched. And I searched. No chests on the minimap. No enemies I haven't defeated. I was stumped. I was heartbroken. I was convinced I got this close. I went through all that, and I still won't be able to win. So, as a last resort, I looked up a video walkthrough of the temple, and followed someone else's steps back up to the door.
And see, using Din's fire, you can take these guys out pretty easily. There's a switch on the ground in this room that does create a ring of fire. I kind of forget where in the room it is, but you can, of course, once you get that ring of fire going, you can sort of move around and the Anubis enemies will sort of mirror you.
This is a Beamos. I'm gonna give you a moment to think of just how many times I've seen this exact enemy, because it's more than now. Navi's hint is the following. Watch out for its beam, I bet it doesn't like smoke in its eye. Be so fucking for real with me right now. I understand that smoke is related to bombs, but smoke does not directly equal bomb. Smoke in your eye, blocking your vision and making it hard to see the player is an entirely different mechanic than exploding. The first time you meet one is in Dodongo's Cavern. Yes, right as you're allowed to use bombs, but you'd never think to use one because the one in the center of the room is not even remotely a threat. I've never had to kill one of these, and the enemy's design does not help with this at all because even though I know this thing is technically alive, it never moves across the ground, so I've been made to assume that the challenge for them will always only be dodging or stunning its eyeball if you absolutely must. It's a statue. It clangs when your sword hits it. It's so stupid. But fine. It's over. We're moving on to the last boss. Twin Rova. Twin Rova is 2 twin sister witches, one fire, one ice. First phase, use your newly acquired mirror shield to shoot one sister's beam back at the other. Second phase, they use a spell to transform into one. She'll switch off between fire and ice. Gather 3 beams of either type into the shield before your mirror shield spits it back out at her, and either jump over to slash or shoot her with arrows. The time window to slash with your sword is incredibly small and makes it a lot harder, so if you don't have arrows, I'd recommend getting them before you fight her. Her design is fantastic though, and the mechanics make her the most fun boss to fight in my opinion. With the Spirit Medallion finally in our hands, the 6 sages awakened, it's time to head back to the Temple of Time, where Sheik reveals to you that he was in fact Princess Zelda the entire time, and her design is just gorgeous. Of course, the moment her design is lifted, she's captured. Let's go to Ganon's castle. It's structured wonderfully, aside from a few nitpicks. There's one short room for every sage, and you can pretty much beat them in any order, except you need the golden gauntlets from the Shadow Room before you can knock down a tower in the Fire Room, and the chest only unlocks once you hit a switch down and out of view after making a staircase with fire arrows and the torches on either side of the room. It really seems like everything related to the Shadow Temple is just there to fuck with you. Other than that, there's an ice puzzle in the Water Room similar to the one in the mini dungeon by Zora's Domain. domain. But they decide now's the perfect time to introduce the concept of pushing one ice block into the center hole to fill it as a bridge, when every other hole has always just been to reset the block. Very cool. Also, if you happen to have magic, happen to not be traumatized enough to avoid the lens of truth entirely, and happen to be on the bottom floor of Ganon's castle, there's a room of 4 Deku cellars and fairies that will give you everything you could ever possibly need or want. Finally, we can fight Ganon. And yeah, he's stupid easy, but it's a great scene. You step into a grand room where he sits and plays the organ, very dramatic, with Zelda trapped in a crystal above him. All holders of the Triforce's sacred power, there in the same room. And then you get to play ping pong with Ganon until he literally throws up, which is an insane thing to think about being remastered. The castle starts to collapse, and the now freed Zelda will help you escape. Outside, as it falls to rubble, he will transform into a hideous pig monster and swipes away the Master Sword. So again, I highly recommend getting Viggoron's sword early to use instead. I really didn't want to die, so as soon as Navi flies back over and happily lets us know she can help again, that we fight together, I target him and ask her for a hint. I have no idea what his weak point is. Really feeling the teamwork. So, as a result, after dying and doing the castle escape sequence again, which takes a full 2 minutes, I look at the walkthrough one last time. His glowing tail, obscured by the entire rest of his body from Link's point of view, is the weak point. But it's fine, it's not like Navi can fly or anything. In the end, you finish him off easily as Zelda throws the Master Sword back at you, stabbed right through his head. The evil is sealed away, the world is saved. Zelda thanks you for everything and sends you back to your original time. The camera pans over a desolate but healing Hyrule as the credits roll. Everyone's missing for now because they've gathered to dance around a colorful fire. The sages look out wistfully over the mountain, Navi leads Kid Link for seemingly no reason, and Link reunites with Zelda right before the game closes. So, obviously this was a long video, way longer than I'm used to making so far. If you watched this all the way to the end, I want to thank you because that really helps. I do all the editing myself right now, so with work, it's been a bit tough to get this out in a timely manner. But if you enjoyed, then it's worth the effort. If you're interested in watching me play the Ocarina of Time remake live on release day, which I'm assuming will be sometime around the holidays, you should subscribe so you don't miss it. And let me know in the comments if there's anything you're looking forward to in the remake. And here's to the next few months of waiting.